Hola Mariana, ¿cómo estás?
Hi.
Mariana, thank you very much for your time. We're at Fintech Connect 2019. It's very busy, very loud here, so thank you very much for spending some time with us. So you've been with ING and working in innovation, blockchain technology, distributed ledgers for the past 5 years, more or less. First of all, could you please explain what it is you do at ING today?
Well, I'm in charge of actually developing the strategy and as well executing on that strategy for ING globally for distributed ledger technology. So that means that every initiative or any problem that might be solved with distributed ledger technology, then the team comes in and tries to help solving that problem. And we're lucky enough to be able to work, for example, not only with wholesale banking, but also with retail and with group services, which is like the section, for example, of finance, risk, etc. So it's quite interesting and challenging job.
It is, but the outcome could be huge potentially if you manage to pull it off. The idea, so first step was to identify a number of use cases, I guess, and then finding a way to prioritize and focus on implementing and delivering blockchain for those. Am I correct?
Exactly. So we started more or less in 2014 researching whether indeed the technology could mean something for ING and its processes. Then more or less in 2015 we decided to join actually exploration. So we joined several groups, and one of them was actually R3. We started joining there, and then in 2016 more or less we delivered over 44 proof of concepts in different business lines. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a crazy amount of work, but it was quite interesting because then it allowed us to understand better the technology and to see where we could exploit actually those benefits, right? Benefits such as, for example, maybe efficiencies, maybe, for example, risk reduction in certain parties, maybe just the provenance of the asset itself would be interesting enough for us. So we started looking at the combination with the technology together with the asset class.
Yes.
And what would you require per asset class in order for that technology to be able to help you solve that specific problem? And we gathered a lot of learnings from there. We deployed actually more or less 8 proof of concepts and pilots actually by now. Pilots that have been done in production, and then we have been working this last year heavily on number one, setting up, for example, getting out of the lab and setting up our own organization within ING. And number two, deploying these specific ideas and initiatives into production. So we have been quite busy.
I don't even know what to say to that now, so you've been extremely busy. So it's interesting to see the evolution from a lot of ideas, use cases, proof of concept, but then the ability as well to deliver something, and then hopefully to see that thing in production at some point and start again, as you say, reducing cost, improving operational efficiencies, and so on and so forth. If I step back a bit, just before we talk maybe more closely about maybe 1 or 2 initiatives you successfully implemented or working on, how important then is blockchain or distributed ledgers, to large financial institutions? You've already answered. It's essential, right, today?
I think for several financial institutions, they are undergoing a different journey than ING. I believe we are really lucky as a blockchain team to have obviously Ralph Hammers as our sponsor.
Yes.
If you really hear, for example, a lot of his speeches, he always talks about the achievements that we have accomplished from blockchain perspective, right? I think we have a really amazing team that has found ways to actually use those capabilities for the good of the bank and to create those efficiencies. So we have had quite successful stories with the things that we have implemented. For example, in the trade finance, the first pilot that we did with Mercuria on Easy Trading Connect, showed at least 3 times velocity or 3 times the process of issuing a letter of credit to be faster. Later on we did another pilot, and then that was even faster. It showed, for example, a 4-time efficiency. So when we're trying to assess which cases actually you should put this technology and which cases you really have to say no, because it might hinder you from what you are expecting, right?
Yes.
With that assessment, then we come up with indeed what kind of benefits would be, and then we go on and we try to unveil those. But we also have, quite some learnings that we have been able to take in, and as well that we have been able to share with a wider ecosystem, because then, we leverage as well the learnings and the capacity from other teams for our own improvements or developments.
A few points you mentioned which resonate with me. One, we always talk about creating a culture almost whereby failing is good as long as you extract some learnings and do better next. But it's also the importance about saying no and being able quite early stage not to explore a specific avenue. So I think that's important. Second, and that's going to be my question there, ING is quite not lucky, but you made the decision a long time ago already to be customer-centric, again, to have those 3 C's of the focus on the customer, culture, collaboration. So that's incredible, and very few banks have that in their DNA as such, so that's a plus. Plus the leadership, the senior leadership, recognizing the value and the impact. I think that's, again, that's invaluable in terms of impact on your employees. So if I step back, my question is, how can large institutions, what's required for a large financial institutions to implement those blockchain technology in terms of, I don't know, is there a culture change which needs to happen, or what barriers they need to overcome actually to be in a position like ING where you fully explore blockchain technology? If I make sense.
Yeah, that's a quite tough question, to be honest. I think indeed the culture really helps. At the team, for example, we are really careful on who actually makes it to the team.
Yes.
And then that we keep this kind of psychological safety where everybody in the team actually adds value, right? And if you really look at the team composition, each person comes from different backgrounds. So then they challenge each other, trying to see what are the blind spots, right? And nobody knows it all. And I think that's kind of like also an ING type of value, you know? You always have to collaborate because you might be missing something that another person, it doesn't matter the background and it doesn't matter where is that person coming from or the experience, might
see it.
Exactly. So then that's actually, something that I have learned a lot to leverage. And what I also like is that we are allowed to give back, you know? So as you mentioned, okay, I already failed with this, I already made a mistake, right? And it's not about celebrating that mistake, but it's about celebrating the learning, right? So what I learned from it is this, and maybe next time, you can avoid that, falling into that specific same mistake as you go around developing or deploying these solutions. And to be honest, this is a technology that's evolving really fast, so you have a lot of hurdles to overcome, not only in the banking level or in the finance level, but also as an ecosystem, right? So for example, today I'm going to be talking about interoperability actually, and that's something that you see a lot of institutions that are not yet mature enough, just struggling with actually deploying the solutions to production, when you have to already be thinking about, okay, are the decisions that you make on the design of how to tokenize each asset class gonna help you for that interoperability, or will it hinder it, right? And that's gonna be like a huge point, I think, what a lot of people is gonna be like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have gone this way,
That needs to be addressed as soon as possible, as early as possible in the design process.
And we're still gonna unveil that, ourselves as well as ING, obviously, with different solutions that we have and that we now see to interoperate.
That's a key point as well. When I talked to Benoit and I talked to Stéphane, we talked about innovation, of course, and collaboration, partnerships. Benoit was mentioning that ING is collaborating with 200-ish, organizations, so fintech, small, big, or at your level. I mean, focused on blockchain. How important the value of those partnerships? And do you see more and more, like in 2020, again, partnering with various type of organization, over and beyond just belonging to an association like R3, but how does that look like in 2020, so collaboration in the blockchain space at ING?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned, we are really a small team.
Yes.
And we have to help the whole bank. So it's a great challenge. It's a lot of, really interesting. But we can leverage this ecosystem that indeed Benoit has created, innovation has created, right? Where we have a specific team and we pose them some challenges. So we want to say, for example, we want to solve a problem in this specific part, I don't know, financial markets or treasury or whatever it may be. And then they go around and they start scouting fintechs, that are solving that problem right now. And then we start seeing where are our gaps, It can be knowledge, capabilities, it can be location, it can be, things that we can leverage from them, and then that's where we start partnering, right?
Yeah.
Another thing I think we are good at as ING is creating these ecosystems. So we normally engage as well, not only on the value chain as we see it, but as you mentioned, being customer-centric, then you really have to realize, okay, where are the touch points from that customer along that specific value chain? And then banking is only one of them, right? Or maybe payments is only one of them. Mm-hmm. But all the rest of the ecosystem needs to also be included to actually leverage that specific benefits of including, for example, blockchain technology in one specific use case. So, and blockchain itself is as well kind of like a team sport, right? So if you do it, you have to do it together.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot when having this kind of network, yeah.
On that point, actually, how engaged, how much would you engage customers then in that very creative process whereby you're trying to disrupt or improve specific, processes or environments? Is there a way you could proactively engage, and brainstorm and invite customers or partners to come and share with your team?
Yeah. So we have different points of engagement, right? When you have, for example, an initiative, you always have to validate that your assumptions are correct, right? Whether indeed there's a market, whether indeed that's a pain point or not, whether indeed, that's something that they are, suffering from, because you might have perceptions. Yes. And you might think, I know I've been in this industry for 20 years, but a lot of the times, that's not the same reality as they are living.
Right.
So that would be one of the engagement points. And if you really look at every single POC that we have delivered, at least in the blockchain sphere, you will always see that there's a customer. There's a customer that has been along this specific journey with us, right? And for example, that was the way that we created Fintech Connect, Fact, HQLAX. So a lot of these type of collaborations have always had the customer learning with us and going through this journey with us. Because if we don't do it for them, then what are we doing in that sense? And it can be also, for example, that you may have internal customers, for example, finance, or for example, another area that you might be solving a problem with. But it is important that you always have them in mind. And sometimes, the customer may not have the capabilities, or maybe you can only work with one customer at a time. You don't have the bandwidth to work with 20, or to put like a huge proof of concept. And therefore, you can also, for example, share the learnings via, webinars. We have done a lot of those. Maybe, conferences. Maybe, for example, we have invited them to a roundtable. We have a customer in the room as well type of initiative. So we have different ways depending on as well what the customer would like to get from us, right? We have had one-on-ones. We have done, some blockchain workshops with some of them. So we do appreciate a lot the feedback that we get from them.
I was expecting no less from you, but I think it's good that for that interview you injected a bit more of that, because so to summarize, different point of contact, more or less engaging or engaged depending on the availability, the time of your customers, and the ability to piggyback on other events, or that's smart as well, because everybody's there at one place. So let's have like a productive, meaningful conversation on one specific use case or issue. So I commend that. So thank you very much. Yeah, I know you're very busy. So maybe the last question is, what are the key challenges or opportunities maybe to drive blockchain adoption in 2020? And not just ING, but you have a view on the industry, and you think 2020 is going to be the year where we're going to see maybe more projects coming to fruition, or there'll be a big challenge and that still will impair the ability for banks to fully embrace blockchain in the near future?
Well, first of all, to understand that it takes time. It's not something that you can just change the financial market infrastructure from one day to the other one. And that time is also to get the same level of learnings, right? To indeed change what you already know, master it, and then maybe improve it in the next iteration or something like that. There are quite some barriers of adoption, depending, for example, on the investment, depending on as well, how management see it, depending on the backlog, for example, on compliance terms, etc. For each institution, they are different, but it definitely takes time. So I would say, we need to be patient a little bit. We're getting there, but it will take indeed a lot of stamina and a lot of effort from everybody around in this industry, right, or in this ecosystem. And second is, I think the opportunity for us in ING is we are out of the lab, so we are not, in innovation lab anymore. We are part of actually the standing organization, which means a lot. It means that you have to professionalize yourself. It means a level of maturity. It means as well that you have specific deliveries, right? But it also means, obviously, that the organization is also supporting you, right? It's believing in you and it's believing on the value that you're actually bringing to them. And last but not least, I would say as well that this is just the beginning, you know? If you really look at the future and all the things that we could do with this specific technology, what it allows for it, you know, the tokenization, the fragmental ownership, you know, and all the new things and ideas that are coming on how different people is going to interact at different points of that specific value space, it's going to be, I think, amazing. So it's just the beginning.
So thank you very much. So you still have a lot of work on your hands, you and your team, for the foreseeable future.
Hopefully, yes.
But I love that. Responsible strategy, also implementation, delivery. I think that's the best way to get things done. So muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Mariana. Have a good Fintech Connect, and hopefully let's catch up soon in the Netherlands, in France, or in the UK. I'm not too sure, but thank you so
very
much.
much. Nice to meet you.